Good morning, CSRA. This is Jackie,
And Coach
and
Patrick.
you're listening to Help Matters here on WAAW Shouting 94.7 FM, the station of inspiration and empowerment information.
So, as you know, Jack and I, we've been talking about obesity and its relationship with diabetes and a lot of other things about just, becoming healthier, maintaining your weight, losing weight, and things of that nature. Diabetes is the seventh leading cause of death in the U.S. today. 1 in 10 U.S. citizens, adults, has been diagnosed. And if the trends continue, 1 in 5 will have it by 2025. So that's why we want to address this subject because it's so important that you understand the importance of preventing or delaying type 2 diabetes from coming on your body. Today with us, we have Dr. Franchell Hamilton. Dr. Franchell Hamilton, she is the founder of NeuroSwitch Weight Loss. She's a medical director. She's an author, speaker, and consultant, a bariatric surgeon, obesity, and a lifestyle medicine specialist.
Well, welcome, Dr. Franchell Hamilton. You just don't know how grateful we are to have you speak to the CSRA. And you are speaking to over 20 counties here, and people are listening in, and they are expecting to hear some great information. So, welcome to the CSRA.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm always happy to share knowledge. I think knowledge is power, and so I'm always excited to be able to do these things. Thank you for having me.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we hope the weather in Texas is good.
It's good now. It was raining for a bit. Our whole Thanksgiving week was rainy, but today we're back in the 60s, mid 60s, so nice and sunny now.
Awesome, awesome. Did you stay local for Thanksgiving or did you travel?
Yeah, no, we stayed local. So most of my siblings and my parents are here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So they're probably about an hour from me. Dallas is so huge, very much like Houston, but they're local. So we traveled to my mom's house, and so it was good.
Awesome. So,
You guys
Dr.
good?
Hamilton, whatever you feel like sharing with the CSRA Central Savannah River area, go ahead and get started. Feel free to flow wherever you want to flow, however you want to flow. We just want to get this wealth of information that you have for us on today.
Yeah, so obviously being a bariatric surgeon and obesity specialist, I deal a lot with diabetes, heart disease. We call it almost like metabolic syndrome or cardiometabolic, where it's the trifecta of heart disease, diabetes, and then obesity, which includes cholesterol, hypertension, kind of all those things. And so that's kind of one of the things that I do and I deal with on a regular basis. They've changed the name now from bariatric surgeon to metabolic surgeon because that's really kind of the things that we're trying to target. Originally, bariatric surgery, one of the biggest benefits of that is to target diabetes and honestly to help with insulin resistance, because a lot of people who are obese start out with insulin resistance, and it's one of those things that we try to avoid, them into going into full-blown diabetes. And so I talk a lot to my patients about genes and environment, and there's a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline about how diabetes and a lot of these chronic conditions, even though people may be genetically prone to it, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to have it or will end up with it. So I'm really focused on prevention now, trying to recognize it early. And so some of the things, if you have family members who have it, you probably have a genetic tendency to have it. Part of the reason why I rebranded to NeuroSwitch is the switch in the brain and the switch in the genes to turn on some of those medical conditions. We try to prevent that and at least help people understand that. And so one of the things I learned during years of research is that even if you're prone to it, it's really what you do on a day-to-day basis, your habits, your lifestyle, that ultimately will turn on that switch for you to have that particular disease. I give the example a lot, like where a lot of people have related and seen the commercials for lung cancer from being in these factories long term. And so when you're in an environment like that, the factory, that toxic environment, it can switch on some of these genes and you can have lung cancer. The same things go for diabetes. when you're in an environment where you eat a lot of processed food all the time, or where you're not being real active, or, you know, almost the very similar toxic environment, it can switch on the gene for you to have diabetes. And so that's one of the things I definitely wanted to highlight, that it's not necessarily just about eating sugar and all the time. There's so many other factors that play a role into the process of, you know, becoming diabetic.
Wow.
Yeah, that's so good. And I like how you talk about the switch, that
Mhm.
neural switch, because people don't realize how much your brain plays a part in everything you do. I mean, everything is connected to our brain. That's our central nervous system. I mean, it's like the tower, it's the lighthouse that controls everything.
Yeah.
And so many times we don't do the things that we need to learn how to do to sustain our
Mhm.
healthier habits. And we try to do these temporary things and it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, and we know that Jack and I throughout our research, we found out that 80 to 90% of the increase in type 2 diabetes is associated with being overweight or
Yes.
being obese.
Mhm.
And so we try to drive that home to people to help them understand why physical activity and proper nutrition is so important. And like you say, that switch, you can easily give somebody a program of being active or a program of eating better. But if you don't change this, if you don't make that switch, it's just temporary.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I talk a lot about that. I mean, that's what my whole program is about. Like, as a bariatric surgeon, I saw people regaining weight, right? And when they regain weight after surgery, comes the remission, you know, they rebound into their medical conditions. So their diabetes comes back, their hypertension comes back. And I know people didn't want that to happen. So I went on a deeper dive to figure out, why are my patients regaining? And that's when I found it's all the neural pathways, the brain, the mindset, you know, that's kind of triggering them to go back into their old habits. Like, if they didn't understand some of the reasons why they're doing some of these things, a lot of them would kind of move back into old habits, and then the old habits would get the best of them. And so habits are things that we do on a daily basis. Habits are actually formed by neural pathways in the brain, and you have to be able to recognize that and learn those neural pathways. I also use the example of going like on a dirt road. And I may have told you guys this, where you have a truck that has trenches, right? Those are neural pathways. It's used to going the same way. And when somebody is just thrown a diet plan, oh, go low carb because you're diabetic, or go keto, and they try to veer off that road, they do it for a little bit, but that car wants to go back on that same road because the trenches is what they know, right? And so you have to change the direction of those trenches in order for it to sustainably go into a different direction. And so just throwing a diet or throwing even a surgery, and a surgery does a lot for the body, right? It changes the beta cells, which are the cells in the pancreas that produce insulin. It makes them actually more healthier after surgery. It changes your hormones in the body. It does all these things, but you still have people that regain the weight even after surgery. And so that's how powerful the brain is. Like, it doesn't matter, even if all these hormones changed and all these other different things have changed in your body. I say the brain is essentially still the CEO of the body. So you have to like honor that. You have to, you know, rewire that. The brain can be rewired. And so in order to make permanent changes. And so that's the part of prevention. Like, if you don't want to go back, you have to do the work in the brain. Yeah.
I like that, Dr. Hamilton. You said something in your webinar about automatic default.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that. So I try to
Yeah.
talk about it Saturday, but I can't bring it like you brought it.
Well, so automatic default is exactly that. It's that trench in the road. It's that path that you always want to go on. A lot of times these people learned in childhood, right? I give an example where if they were upset, they were given food. If they, you know, did well in school, they're giving chocolate or ice cream or whatever it is. And so these become pathways that if I do something good or if I'm upset, then this is what's going to make me happy. A lot of this is learned early on. So I tell my parents, do something else, to reward them that's not necessarily a sugary food, because then the brain learns that, oh, if I'm upset, this is going to be my go-to. And these become automatic habits. As you become older, as you become an adult, you have a bad day at work, I want sugary food. Or if whatever happens, you didn't meet the mark, or so to speak, you need to feel better. Those become your automatic habits that you go to. And the only way to rewire, you have to rewire those in the brain. That's the only way to kind of get out of that and to change that. Automatic habits is the default. It is your lifestyle. And this is what I was talking about being in these environments that can change your genetics. So just like the mill was a toxic environment for those people who worked there for years and years, having these automatic habits that can be toxic, drinking, indulging, overeating, whatever the case may be, years and years can turn these genetic switches on that manifest into medical problems such as obesity, diabetes, heart disease. Yeah.
That is great.
Yeah, that is so good because and we tell people all the time, it takes time. You have to
Yeah.
practice, your new behavior. We're not naive. It's a challenge for everyone, no matter
Yeah.
what's your level or where your healthy behaviors are at. It's a challenge. And
Yeah.
you just have to, once you adopt some healthier behaviors into your lifestyle, you just have to practice those healthier behaviors. You're not going to get it right every day, but you got to stay in that process. You got to stay in that journey and learn from when you have those, I don't like to call them failures, but have those lesson learned moments when you don't quite meet your expectation. You just learn from that. We tell people all the time, you made the standards on what you was going to try to do, the new behaviors you're going to try to meet. Just simply change it. If you didn't make it, don't focus so much on the results. Focus on that journey. Focus on that process, what you're doing in that journey, on that process to develop to get to that result. And you can change that and adjust that as you go.
Absolutely. And I even tell, my clients, if you have a relapse or setback, look at your setback as settling back and just kind of regroup and rewind and just remind yourself, what are you doing and why am I doing this? So like Coach said, just, find out what is that? Just kind of why did I start this?
That
Why
why,
did
yeah.
that sustainable, meaningful, purposefully why started this? So that doesn't mean you failed. That means you just kind of learn where you are and what's going on so you can have more resilience and overcome where you at. So yes, it takes time. And Dr. Hammond, would you say that works from person to person is different because everybody level is different. So we can't compare ourselves to what we see on social media or what our friends or what our significant other was maybe doing. We have to find that fit that works for us.
Oh yeah, like 100%. And the other thing I always say, it's definitely going to be individualized. It's definitely going to, it took time for you to learn that habit, right? For you to learn that not so good habit. And so it's just going to take as much time for you to kind of rewire that. One of the ways that I tell my patients to do it now, I used to be the typical doctor where I would just like give them a meal plan, right? Like one meal plan fits all. We quickly learned that that's not necessarily going to be the case for everybody, right? And so you really have to get to know yourself. And I tell patients, don't let people just shove down a meal plan or a workout plan down your throat. That's not going to be right for you. That's not going to, that's a way to not learn a new habit. If anything, there's going to be an area in the brain that kind of goes off and says, ding, 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 demotivation, demotivation. And it's going to help you go the wrong way. One of the ways that I help patients to learn some of these new practices, healthier practices, I let them choose what they want to do that's healthy. I help guide them and give them like options on what for their lifestyle I think is going to be best. And then they get to choose, right? And then that's going to be the best thing, something that's doable for their lifetime, currently where they're at, and something that feels natural for them. If I noticed when I tell patients to cook and they don't like to cook, like that's only hurting them, right? And so now if I know that they don't like to cook, let's look at other better options. You can get those boxes that come with, the food already in it, so you don't have to like figure out what you're going to eat. Like, and it's figuring out like not only their why, but why do they do some of that stuff, right? Like taking it back to the roots. Like, Why do you feel like you have to binge? I've noticed some of my people feel deprived. They were deprived in childhood, and we're just now addressing this now as an adult. And so they overeat on certain stuff because they didn't have that. But once they recognize that that's the reason why they do it, then the game changes. Why don't you like to cook? Is it time consuming? Is it because you don't know what to cook? Is it because you don't feel like you know how? I mean, it's figuring out the why you don't want to do that. Why don't you want to move? I have people who are like, I don't like exercise. And it's like, they don't like exercise. Specifically, they don't like being in a gym. So don't go to a gym. Walk, ride your bike, do yoga. You know what I'm saying? Figure out something else. Like, don't feel like you have to fit in this box that the media or whatever is telling you to fit, like where you see these gym memberships and them doing all this stuff. I mean, for some people, there's like, oh, I could never do that. And so that's a deterrent. So then don't do it. Do stuff that's natural to you, that feels doable for you, and just start with that, something small. That's the best way to start forming healthier habits.
I like what you said, that doable and what naturally to your circadian
Yeah,
rhythm,
yeah,
what you flow
correct.
with. I like that. That is so good. I love that. Wow. That
Yeah,
motivated me.
yeah, yeah.
That hit
Yeah.
me. So
Right,
yeah, I
because
like that.
seasons change, right? I give an example of when I was single, I was able to do one thing. I worked out all the time. And then when you get married, you have kids or you become empty nesters. I
Things
mean,
change.
it changes, right? It's fluid. Life is fluid.
Right.
And so don't get caught up in this one thing, that you did 20 years ago.
Wow.
That's so good. And it's I think this is so timely because we're coming into that season, where people are going to be just a barrage of information about dieting and
Yeah.
how you can lose weight fast. And we're in a microwave generation, and if everybody think they can get something quick fix, they want that, so. And we just tell our listeners to be careful with that and just know there's canned programs. And I think we all as professionals came through that season where we would just get a canned program. Here, try this will work for you.
Yeah.
And now we know better. We know
Right.
different, that it just
Yeah.
doesn't work that way. You have to sit down with people. You have to find out, what they're trying to do, what they're trying to accomplish, and help them to come up with something that works best for them.
Yeah.
And not something we're just telling them to do, but working with them to help them to
Got
do
it.
the best thing that,
And got
that
it.
works for them.
Yeah, and I like what Dr. Hamilton said, get into that root, asking the right questions, that
Mhm.
probing, just so you can continue to get to really what's really going on.
Mhm.
So now I done came up with a plan, not a really plan, but I'm like, okay, I want to move, but I just want to be able to do what I like to do. I don't
Mhm.
like doing it in the gym, but what can I do outside of the gym? So just guiding them through
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
process, and so they're like, boom, it hit.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, this is what I'm going to do. So that is good, and that
Right.
takes I I'm telling you, that takes a special grace as a coach. You have
Yeah.
to be very client centered and people
Right.
centered to help people, because 36 years in this industry, I didn't seen people
Seen
just
it all.
throw stuff at
Mhm.
people, and it frustrated me. I was so like, no, I'm that's just wasn't right. So now I know better. I
Mhm.
do better.
Mhm.
So yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
absolutely
yeah,
right.
and it's all about just helping the people, and so many times we have to get rid of that mental weight before you can get rid of the physical weight. And a
Yeah.
lot of people don't understand that. It's so many emotional things that cause you to eat or
Yep.
not be active, and you have to address those things in order for you to be successful in your process of getting healthier.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. And that's why usually when I meet with patients, I can find like several things that I feel like they need to work on. And some of it is the mental weight. And some people aren't ready to let that go yet or to address that yet. And you
Mm.
almost have to be okay with that. And so a lot of them, I'm like, okay, if you're not ready to address the emotional eating, let's do something that you can do. Again, it's all about what season they're in and then what they can do. And so it's just moving forward, right? Just continuing to take small steps. They may not be ready to kind of address whatever happened in their past that's causing them to emotional eat. But they may say, but you know what? I can start walking my dog, okay, it's a
I'm
win,
listening.
whatever they can give you. And you'd be so surprised how many people don't know. And so Jackie, that's what you guys are saying. How many people don't know that there's other options? Because all they see is what's on social media. All they see, I mean, the diet industry is so predatory. They show you what you want, they want people to see and they want people to buy. And you're like, there's so much more than this. You don't have to kind of go to a gym. You can do this. And some people are like, really? They're like so shocked that there's other options that they can do, that they can still have certain foods. It's just they don't have to completely eat celery and peanut butter all the time,
Oh, no.
I mean, it's just giving them
That's great.
options.
Yeah.
And Dr. Hammond, I call them my B attitudes of the fitness industry. They bait us in. They pull us in by baiting us in, and then we get burned out.
Yeah.
And then we just it's just like we're baited, we're burned out, we're bought, baited, and we get burned out. Those are my three
Yeah.
attitudes into that. And so it took me a while to get there, because I have to admit, going into that, I had mentors. That's what they showed me. But I always, something deep down inside me said, it is something different. I
Mhm.
don't know what it is, but it's something different. And I was hungry for that difference. And so I just did not have the connection. But I tell you, I connected with this doctor right here and others, and it clicked. And it's like, wow, it's been a game changer for me. I have really grown in 6 months. I mean, of my whole 56 years of life, I have grown the most in 6 months, just being connected with Dr. Hamilton and the other team
Yeah.
that I work along with on our team. I love it. I'm excited of the things that I'm learning so I can help
Yeah.
others. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
same
awesome.
here. I've learned too. I've learned from, you know what I'm saying? So it's been great. It's a constant learning, right? New
Yes.
things are coming out, different things are coming out. I've grown in the neuroscience and the genetic portion, I mean, we're not trained that in medical school. I mean, very similar to what you were saying. You have your mentors that it's like, this is the way it's going to be. You have to work 300 minutes a week and exercise. You guys all know those like check boxes, right? You guys do these
Yeah.
courses. I mean, and it's just like that doesn't work for everybody. You know what I'm saying? And so we're all taught kind of the same thing coming through. And then you really got to like personalize it, because a lot of that stuff doesn't work for a lot of people. So
Awesome. Patrick.
Guys, you've been listening to the interview with Dr. Franchell Hamilton, guys. I know you out there been enjoying the interview that we have had, this wealth and wealth of knowledge of information, guys. And we know we're going into the season, the holiday seasons, and we're going into January and everybody's making plans to try to start a healthy journey. So maybe this is something that can get you jump started on your wellness journey and do something a little bit different than what you've done before. So, Dr. Hamilton, welcome back on the second half of Health Matters.
Yeah.
thank
So
you.
Dr.
Thank you.
So Dr. Hamilton, we mentioned on the first half of the broadcast about 80 to 90% of the increase in type 2 diabetes is associated with being either overweight or obese. Can you address that?
Yeah, and so one of the reasons why that is and why it's so important to treat obesity is because when people have too much lipo tissue, essentially adipose tissue, fat tissue, we need fat tissue. Fat tissue, which in medical terms is called adipose tissue. It's everywhere in our body. It surrounds our organs, and it's actually an organ. It's one of the largest organs. A lot of people don't look at it as an organ, but it is an organ because it has hormonal functions. And so what happens is when people are overweight or obese, a lot of that fatty tissue goes in places that it shouldn't go. So it deposits in our organs. It gets in our skeletal muscle. It gets in our liver. I'm sure people have heard of fatty liver. It gets in our pancreas. And what happens is it goes in places that it's not used to going. And so it's like an overabundance. It gets in our cardiac, our heart tissues. And when it gets in these tissues that where it's not supposed to go, it makes that organ not work as well. And so this is why obesity is the cause of so many other diseases. And this is why, one of the reasons why obesity has such a high percent cause for diabetes, because when it gets into the pancreas tissue organ and it gets into the skeletal muscle, this is where the blood sugar is mostly like regulated in the pancreas and in the skeletal muscle. And when it can't, the blood sugar in the body can't go back into the organ, it hangs around in the blood. And the reason it hangs around in the blood is because the fatty tissue has overtaken those organs and it makes them not regulate appropriately. And so that's one of the reasons obesity is one of the highest causes for obesity. It's the overabundance of this adipose tissue getting into these organs, making the blood sugar not be able to be reabsorbed. And so it just kind of hangs around. And so that's why it's so important to lose weight, because then it makes your skeletal muscles work and be able to absorb glucose. Glucose, by the way, is the most used energy source in the body. Fat is second. Glucose is the most used. Our skeletal muscle uses it to burn, our brain uses it. So we need that type of sugar, but we don't need too much to where our body can't use it, and that's what happens.
Yeah, especially when it's staying in the blood system.
Yep.
Like you said, when you have all of that fat there, it's like all of the space is taken up.
Yes.
And the body's going to do what it's made to do. Like you say, the pancreas is going to create that insulin that it needs to create. But with all of that stuff in there, it's feeding it the insulin to try to unlock those cells to push it where it's supposed to go. But it's just not happening right with all of that. That makes so much sense, Doctor.
Yep. I just wanted to explain that and make sure people understood, you know what I'm saying, why. It's like the sugar can't go back to where it needs to go because almost it's been filled by all the fatty tissue and it's not regulated the way it should be.
And that's a very important point. I mean, because you think about a lot of people that are just overweight. You may not even be obese, but just being overweight, you have additional fatty tissues that's causing your body and your organs to work harder to do what it do.
And that's what I was going to say. It's working overtime.
Yep.
And so that is not healthy over time.
Yeah. And hence heart disease. I mean, right? Because it gets into this heart muscle too. Liver disease, I mean, everywhere. It goes everywhere. And so that's the reason why it's the trigger for so many diseases.
Yeah.
And one of the things that physical activity does, it helps the body be able to move that stuff into the cells where it's supposed to go. So again, that's why it's healthy not to be sedentary, to get active. So now, Dr. Hamilton, anything else you would like to talk about on diabetes before we move forward?
No, but I just want to, that's one of the hacks. Now, during this holiday season, I talk about different hacks, you know, to prevent the weight gain and enjoy the holiday season. And one of the biggest things that people don't do during this time of year because they're ripping and running and because of the weather is they don't exercise. And so I always say, in order to kind of just go through the holiday season, because you can enjoy Christmas. You don't have to deprive yourself. I don't want people depriving themselves, but stick to their normal routines. If you were working out before, exercising or staying active, just make sure that carries throughout this December. I know it's starting to get cold and the weather's changing, but there's so many different things that can be done indoors, you know? And so I just recommend people as one of my holiday hacks, kind of what you mentioned, there's so many benefits of staying active, is to stay active during this holiday season, at least try to.
Yes.
That's so important. Yeah, that's so important because it's a double whammy.
It is.
You know, because everything we do during this time of year, during this season, is built around food.
Yeah,
exactly. Definitely don't want to get inactive.
And stress. Don't forget stress. Oh, I got to get this person.
You don't want to get inactive right now.
Absolutely. You want to stay more active.
I know, but people usually stop for whatever reason.
Like,
it's too cold. I'm too busy. And I'm like, no, that's the worst thing you could do during this time of year.
It's a setup. It's a setup.
But Dr. Hamilton, with all we have just said, you know, that's going to be someone out there just not going to get it. So let's talk about your book, Transformation of the Mind.
Yeah.
Changing the input, the output. Guys, listen, look at this book. You want to get this book. Transformation is a mind set.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, go
But
on.
but before we do that, we haven't even did the contact info. So make sure if you got some contact
Yes,
info, Dr. Hamilton, put that out there so that they can contact.
Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely.
definitely.
And how to order the book and everything, and what your program offer, and how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah. So name of my my practice is NeuroSwitch Weight Loss. It's NEURO Switch Weight Loss. And the website is neuroswitchweightloss.com. And they can contact me through that, get the books through that, get all the information about the different programs through that. People can contact me through Instagram, Dr. F. Hamilton. It's Dr. F. Hamilton almost on all my social media. So LinkedIn, Instagram. And so that's one of the ways they can contact me directly if they can't find NeuroSwitch, because I know it's a mouthful. But they can always just contact me through that. And I help people virtually a lot too. So, yeah. And that's where they can get the book. So I got to
Yes.
tell you guys where this book came from. And Jackie, you may know, but this book was inspired by my patients, actually, my bariatric patients. And so it was when I was doing mold surgeries on them multiple times. And I talk about this in the book where
Mhm.
I would be operating on them. And then over the years, I became known as what I was called, like in the area, as the revision queen. And I didn't want that title because I wanted people to do bariatric surgery once and then be done. But I noticed patients were coming back a second and third time. And that's what kind of inspired everything that I do now. It's almost like it was a pivot in my life where almost like med school, surgeon, I was at one point operating in one dimension, so to speak. And then when I noticed this trend, it completely flipped switches in my brain, so to speak. And I completely went a different direction because almost like you, Jackie, I'm like, there's something missing here. Like, this is not right. Like traditional medicine, I felt like wasn't helping my patients. There was something they did the nutrition visits, they did the surgery, they did the medications. And even that, they were still kind of rebounding or regaining their weight. And I'm like, what is it? And that's when I started having deeper conversations with my patients. Like, it was no longer, hi, I'm Dr. Hamilton. What's your past medical history? What was your surgery history? What's your vitals? Like, I wanted to get to know more about them. I wanted to know, where did they come from? What was their life like when they were growing up? What's their life like now? Their kids, how many kids do they have? Like, because all of this stuff mattered. Like, when did they notice they started gaining weight? Like, most of the time we can pinpoint it. It was a divorce, it was a move, it was a change of a job. Like, there was something that happened. And then we started asking questions, well, why? Why did that job change? Why did that, you know what I'm saying, or whatever the case may be, trigger this? And started going almost like deeper into the questions on what got them here, what got them in my office. And so it was a complete pivot in my entire practice. And when I started noticing this and my patients were doing better with this type of questioning, with this type of relationship, it was even a new relationship that I had with my patient. Before I was like, I knew them on a deeper level. And then that's where this book was inspired, because I realized that it was in the head, right? The bulk of it, they had to change in the head in order for their weight loss surgery to be successful. I performed what I would call the Taj Mahal of bariatric surgery. It's called a duodenal switch. And 2 years later, my patient still rebounded, and then her medical problems started coming back. And she knew this was a really sick patient, and she knew she was going to die of her medical problems if she didn't get this surgery. But yet something, had her drifting back into those old habits. And so we really had to dive deep with that. And so I really felt like my patients would not be successful long-term, not all of them, but I would say 50 to 60% really needed to do the mental work, and they could not be successful in bariatric surgery or any type of weight loss program. This is a chronic disease.
Yes.
Without doing the mental work, it's not a quick fix. For whatever reason, people think this is a quick fix. They think it's like, something that they can just snap a finger and it goes away. There's work involved, and that really has to, and that's what I explain in the book. There's work that's involved. You have to go through different things in the mind. And different people have their different journeys. I'm sure the three of us have all gone through different journeys in our life to get to where we're at. And it was all
Right.
mental work, you know, awareness, first step of
Yeah.
what's going on. Because some people don't even know that. Like some people don't know how they got to the point where they're at today in my office. You know what I'm saying? So we've got to take it back. How did you get here? What are you doing? Like what's going on? You know? And so
Yes.
that's what the book is about. Yeah.
Just the triggers, just even certain thoughts triggers emotions.
Yep.
And what
Exactly.
and what do you result to? That automatic default, I grab something to eat, and then
Correct.
I end up eating more than what I need to. And so it kind of settles that pain temporarily. But
Rarely.
as soon as something happened, and me personally, I know it's things that I didn't deal with in my childhood that I dealt with in adulthood, but it's a different environment, a different situation, but the same type of
Yeah.
experience in this. And I'm like, I had to go and I said, why is this bothering me?
Mm-hmm.
But I had to
Yep.
go back deep. I had to go back to childhood, and it came from a root of rejection,
Yeah.
feeling
Correct.
rejected. So I
Yeah.
had to work on that. I had to begin to speak to myself and stop listening to myself and saying positive things to myself. And so I'm telling you, it works. You have to
Yeah.
repeatedly tell yourself the opposite of what the inner critic is saying.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And
Absolutely.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly what it is.
I like how Dr. Hamilton addressed also how she said in the book that you can get the surgery, but if you don't change that mindset, if you don't,
Mhm.
there's no transformation in the mindset, you can easily go back to those
Yep.
things that got you to come to my office anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what's so critical. CSRA, if you don't get anything, just know that this is a process.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing happens overnight when it
Right.
pertains to your health and wellness. You have to put some effort into it.
Mm-hmm.
Having good health is an asset, just like having a lot of money. You have to put some effort into getting this thing. And if you put the effort into it, you put the work into it. And it's not easy, but it get easy as you do it all the time. The more you do it, this brain get used to it because up front, the brain is going to fight the change. It's just
Yep.
going to fight it.
Correct.
But once you retrain it, once you keep practicing through repetition, then things will change and it'll get easier for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. It becomes an automatic habit. That's
Yep.
exactly what automatic
Yeah,
habits are.
automatic
Yeah.
habits. So let's talk about, so Dr. Hamilton, we do talk about the first of the year. We talk about this, and we do want you to come back and talk to us on the CSRA because people do call in and ask us about what's the best diet. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, that's still going on. Yes. So go ahead and talk about your other book about what
Yeah.
is the best diet.
Well, it's funny. So I made this book because it's exactly that question. So people were coming to me, rightfully so. Like I'm the weight loss expert, supposed to be, but we never learned about nutrition in medical school. Like secret, you know what I'm saying? We never learned about nutrition. And so a lot of people would come to me and be like, what's the best diet for me? What's the best? And so I took it upon myself to educate my own self, so I could educate my patients. Like I knew the macros, you know what I'm saying, minerals and all that stuff. We learned that in medical school, but we don't really do a deep dive into the different diets. And so with all the stuff that was coming out, I wanted to put a book together that explained all the different diets. And I'm not being biased. And so I wanted to have a non-biased book that just laid out the different diets and who it would be best for. And so that's what I did in this book. So you have Mediterranean, you have plant-based, you have keto, you have low carb, all paleo, all the ones that are kind of out there, I put in this book, and I listed like the history of them, the pros and cons of them, and what type of person would potentially best be suited for this particular diet. So I just wanted to put together a non-biased book to help people almost have an informed decision on what would be the best diet for them, because what worked for Susie is not going to work for you. For example, I have people who come in, I'm doing keto because my friend is doing keto and she lost 20 pounds, but keto doesn't work for them. You know what I'm saying? There's pros and cons of all the diets. And so I just wanted to put out information out there coming from a physician who actually researched it, who, you know what I'm saying, to help kind of craft you know, what would be like an informative book for them. So for me, I don't necessarily recommend any particular diet. And like you guys are probably, I'm big on lifestyle. I think we should cut out a lot of processed foods, which is, and I put this in here, the American diet is the worst diet. So if you are doing the American diet right now, you are on the wrong diet. But it's full of like processed foods, you know what I'm saying? And it's just, it's really sad. We have hardly any vegetables in our food, any whole grains. It's all enriched, you know what I'm saying, grains. And so anyways, it was really just to educate. And the best thing is going to be, and you guys know this, just whole foods, but make sure it's stuff that you like. If you don't like celery, don't eat celery, pick something else. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be it just needs to be non-processed and whole grains. I don't mind people eating pasta. I just want you to eat whole grain pasta, not enriched flour pasta. Or there's vegetable pasta that you can make out of pastas. You know what I'm saying? There's so many different things. It's like, you don't have to completely cut it out of your diet. Deprivation is one of the worst things that you can do because the brain is like, nope, not having it. You know what I'm saying? And so anyways, I just wanted everybody to be informed about that.
You were preaching now. I'm letting you go. I'm letting you go because I'm telling you, because that's good stuff and we need to hear that. That's why we got to have you come back, because we do talk about setting goals, but we want to be talking about the first of the year sustainable goals, and how to plan for, you know, for success and be prepared for setbacks and relapse. So we want to come back and bring you here and talk about that so we can really, really educate the people in the CSRA, not just the CRSA. We have people in Alabama that tunes into our station. We have people in Virginia. We have people all over Orlando, Florida that tunes into the station. So Houston, Texas, yes, that tunes into this station every Saturday morning. So we would love for you to come back, Dr. Hamilton, if it's not a problem, to help us talk about this to the people so we can educate the people and just, and you know, especially people in our Black community that really, really, you know, that has been our culture of food, you know, and this is how we was taught how to eat, you know. So yes,
definitely.
Yeah, we really thank you for your time. You two great books. The last book you talked about, The Best Diet. Listen, managing diabetes also requires having a healthy diet. You know, that includes keeping a constant meal time. So and a balance of nutrients. So it's your diet. We didn't talk a whole lot about that, but it is very important for those that may be managing diabetes. But not only that, to prevent diabetes and to delay diabetes from coming.
And I do mention that too. That's in the low carb. So I will say certain people are better suited for certain types of diets. And I will say people who struggle with diabetes, lower carb, obviously, and keto, if they don't have any heart conditions, is going to be their best option. And I give the pros and cons for that. So I do list what groups of people would be best suited for those particular diets, because there is a such thing as like food as medicine, right? And so if you have certain medical conditions, that will change the type of diet that you are on. So for people who struggle with diabetes, definitely cutting out the processed sugars and the low carbs is going to be the better option for you.
Okay.
Awesome. Save some of that good stuff for later, Dr. Hamilton.
I know it. But tomorrow is Giving Tuesday, and we always want to be in generosity. So Giving Tuesday, guys, I'm going to give away Dr. Hamilton both books. So guys, I will be getting those books from Help Matters. So someone is going to be getting both of those books because tomorrow is Giving Tuesday. We want to be generous.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Hammer, you can close out with whatever you feel you want to close out with briefly, and we'll close it out.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you guys bringing me on the show and talking to this about you. And I just want to highlight one of the things and why I rebranded to NeuroSwitch is because I do focus a lot on the mental work that's required. I call it brain-based weight loss is essentially what I call it. And we do a lot of brain-based work. And that's almost everything that we were talking about today. And I do genetic testing also. I think medications are key. Surgery is key. Believe it or not, the question came up earlier. I don't even operate as much as I used to anymore because we work on so many different things. A lot of those patients don't even need surgeries. They end up losing the weight without surgery. They may need medications, and that's fine. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of them don't even need the surgery anymore. But it just kind of depends on where they're at in life. And so I just want to kind of put it out there that even if it's not me that you're seeing, definitely find people who work on that portion, to kind of help you get through with any new lifestyle change. And it's not just obesity, diabetes too. I have patients who come see me to lose weight because they have diabetes. I mean, that's the pure reason that motivated them. And to come to my office to finally say, you know what, I want to lose weight now because now I'm on insulin. And so we work a lot with that. Any lifestyle change is going to require mental work. And so I just want to kind of put that out there, coming from a physician, coming from a surgeon who likes to operate. I will no longer do that without the mental work. They have to do that before and then continue that after, because I've seen the results not be sustained if that does not happen. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Awesome. And your contact information one more time, Dr.
NeuroSwitchWeightLoss.com is the website, and there's contact forms, the books, the programs, everything that I do is going to be on that website. Or if you can't seem to find it, at my Instagram handles at Dr. F. Hamilton. So you can just message me and I'll message you the website.
And if you follow Get Fit with Jackie Fitness on Facebook, you can find her because I share everything. And Instagram, Women Only Wellness, I share everything. So you can get it either way. So remember, Giving Tuesday. Tomorrow, I'm going to be giving away Dr. Hamilton book, Transformation is a Mindset and the Best Diet.
Awesome.
And we'd like to thank you for listening to Health Matters here on Shout 94.7 FM. Remember, we are here to help you to become a better you, to be the best you that you can be. We'd like to leave you with 3 John 2. Beloved, I wish above all things that you may prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prosper. Bless and have a healthy day.